Hello and welcome to episode 166 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now coming up on today's episode is the return of one of my most downloaded guests of all time. I'm thrilled to announce that I'm joined by the amazing Kat Von D. This time round, it's all about music. We get to sit down and talk all about her brand new album, Love Made Me Do It. We get to talk about life on the road with her upcoming tour, and just about everything from parenting, being married, and everything else you'd expect from the Mark and Me podcast. I love this interview and I can't wait to share it with you in just a couple of moments' time. But in true typical Mark and Me fashion, I always like to use the introduction to touch base and talk about my previous episode. It was a two-parter. I was joined by Art Alexis from the absolutely outstanding band Everclear. It was a dream come true to have him come on, and the response has been phenomenal. I'm so grateful to everyone that's taken the time to listen, and you know what? What surprised me the most is I didn't realise that some people hadn't heard of Everclear. So I've had some DMs this week and some emails of people that have said, shit, I didn't even know about this band. They've gone and listened to some of the albums and now absolutely adore them. So that's my job done. But let's get back to today's episode. This is huge for me. Kat Von D is beautiful, one of the most amazing guests I ever get, so honest and beats herself from the moment we start talking, and that's all I can ask for from a guest. So I think the best thing to do is to get straight to the interview. So here's me and Kat Von D talking all things music. So Kat, thanks for joining me again on the Mark and Me podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Long time no see.
Massively. Obviously, a lot's happened since we last spoke. But what I want to do is, for the listeners out there, is not talk about tattoos, not talk about the beauty range or anything like that. I want to focus purely on your music.
Oh, I love it.
What I want to do is talk about when you were growing up and those early albums that you were buying that made you basically fall in love with the idea of being in a band or just being into music.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it goes a little bit before that because... like I always say, like most people know me from the tattoo world and stuff, but not everybody knows that like music has always been like my number one passion really in life. And I started playing music when I was 5 years old. So my grandmother was a pianist and she classically trained me and my siblings how to play, and really strict. She was like a strict German woman and they make the best teachers. But yeah, so I fell in love with classical music, Beethoven and Mozart, Chopin, like all the romantics. And so I think by the time I discovered punk rock music, like, that was more, I fell in love with the sentiment, I think, because I felt like an outsider most of my life, even within my own family unit. I really never felt like I belonged. So then I discovered this music that was kind of like the anthems for outsiders, and so I responded to that, but as far as the music goes, it wasn't really until I got into metal that like it really resonated with me, because I think the classical music background, when I listened to like a riff on the guitar, to me it was like very reminiscent of a scale on a piano, and so I could admire that, Yeah. It's not to say that that I dislike punk rock music, but it's not something I aspire to. I mean, I think 4 chords are cool and you can do a lot with that, like with power chords, but like, it's not really, to me, it's like when I listen to like Dio sing, I'm like, oh my God, he's an opera singer. And that's something I want to aspire to, versus listening to like the Germs where they're just like, rah, 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 rah. I'm like, okay, well, there is a skill to it, but it's not the same,
No.
And so then it wasn't until like after that, a few years after that was when I really dove into like more of the post-punk genre. I loved Depeche Mode and Susie and the Banshees and The Cure, and that to me was like everything I loved into one thing, because you had the nostalgic like analog synthesizer sounds, but then you had like the poetry within the lyrics, and that's what I really like. To me, it was like, oh, I would get this tattooed all over my body. You know what I mean? Like. And I've tattooed so many lyrics on people, and it's like, that's the beautiful, powerful part of music, is that it really affects you in that sense. So to answer your question, I mean, some of my first records were more in the punk rock world. Like my first vinyl record I ever bought was a Plasmatics record. And I still love, Wendy O. Williams. She's the coolest in my book. But But I don't necessarily listen to that music anymore.
Can you remember that age? Because I remember when I was doing a paper round and buying cassettes and getting stuff like
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses and Nirvana. Can you remember those albums that you remember taking out the gatefold and looking at the lyrics and them not just being a song you listen to, but you would really, like you just said, Depeche Mode and people, these incredible songwriters. And I'm sure there's stuff like the Smiths and all these bands where you're literally looking at the lyrics and seeing them as poetry. Can you remember when you kind of started to see them for more than just the listening of the lyrics?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it came to discovering those bands, for sure, I think that just happened instantly. I mean, it's one of the reasons I gravitated towards that music. It wasn't just the sound.
Yeah.
It was like all the things that I've ever felt put into song form, and later on I bought like all the, I think they're called songbooks or song. The Cure put out
like all the tab and all the
no,
lyrics themselves.
They just put the lyrics, not even.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I think they're called songbooks or something.
Yeah.
But with little paperbacks and stuff, and I mean, by then I had already memorized all the lyrics anyway. But it is beautiful to read as a poem versus a song. Although it's pretty impossible not to hear the melodies, on like pictures of you or whatever. So, yeah, but yeah, I love that about music.
And I mean, classical to grow up on is incredible. Like the actual depth and the musicianship and just the writing of classical music is something that most people mature into. So people listen to bands and then later on in life think, bloody hell, Beethoven and Mozart. But you did the other way around, and that's pretty damn cool. Like the foundations to learn classic music and stuff is fucking awesome.
Thank you. And I think a lot of that influenced the things that I love the most. I was never really into like the frilly religious, like, I mean, I love some Bach, but like to me it was just kind of boring to me versus like Chopin and Beethoven and Mozart. It's the same feeling you get when you hear, a Cure song or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's romantic and there's frustration and and it is actually quite punk rock in a sense, I mean, definitely Beethoven, he didn't play like anybody else. He didn't write like anybody else. And the subject matters were all about unrequited love and the frustrations that surround that. And so, I fell in love with his story as well, like his life story versus just the music. So, which is funny because I don't typically do that with bands now. Like,
No.
I don't really care about people's personal lives. I just love the music. I don't half the time, I don't really know. Like, I love Kiss, but I don't really know what they all play. I know. And Peter Criss does drums. I know that. Like,
one of them pokes his tongue out a lot on stage and has fireworks and stuff. But I think that must come with age because I'm nearly 40 now, and I'm at that point where I don't know. I just appreciate the music. I don't care about what they're up to, the politics or anything else. I just want the sound in my ears and just to enjoy what they've done.
And your own interpretation of it too, which is nice. Like, I remember listening to like a Gary Newman song that I thought was about love or love and loss, and it was actually about love or loss and death.
Yeah.
And so I love like being able to have my own interpretation of something without knowing who the songs are about. Like, I always when I do listen to bands like The Cure or even IMX, which is how we met. I remember when I first discovered IMX, I was like, oh man, like how lucky would a girl be to be on the receiving end of a song like this, and who knows who that girl is, it's like, and it's sometimes better just to be left that way. And, you can be a little bit more imaginative instead of being like, oh, that's that's after Bridget or whoever,
But that transition, obviously, of being such a fan of music, it being your life, your everything, the way you breathe. Now, when does it become the point in your life when you start wanting to write for yourself? Because I've bought a guitar, I've been in bands, but I've never made it, and I've kind of appreciated that that's just the point that I'll ever be, is just doing a few gigs with mates and stuff. But you sat there and decided to take this as a career and to really, put everything into it. Can you remember those days when you had a notebook and you were doing more than just listening?
I mean, there was a very specific inspiration behind writing music for me. I mean, I always, like you said, I am still the biggest fan of music.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really until I found myself in quite a dysfunctional, unrequited love type relationship with another musician who lived overseas, and he was in a band, and at one point he wrote me an album and had it delivered to my house, And when I opened the box, it said, these are all the things that are easier sung than said. And, you know, we just had this, I guess our relationship was based on fear, you know, this idea of like, if you don't play, you won't lose. And, you know, sometimes we get so scared of failure that we don't even give ourselves a shot. And that's what happened, you know? So it was like wanting something so badly, but not having the courage to actually say it out loud and, or do something about it. So I sat down and I listened to this album and I was just so moved by it. I thought, what better way to respond than with an album?
Yeah.
So like everything else I do, it's not like I'm just like, okay, cool. Today I'm going to do this. And I'm going to, you know, I'm going to be a tattooer today. And this one, it's like, no, I start from scratch. It's like, I know that I need to build on this and need to learn how to do this. Like, I don't know how to sing. Like I sang when I was maybe in, you know, when I was little in the church choir or something, but never had any formal training. So I found a vocal coach and I did voice lessons for 2 years, 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, and like really learned how to sing. And meanwhile, writing music. So the writing part was, I think, you know, I wouldn't say the easier part because I did have challenges of my own, but that, I guess it just came out of me easily. You know, I had so much content to write about, especially in response to that album. And, you know, life just kind of got in the way of life. And I was filming the TV shows and then going on book tours and then, you know, just doing so much that I kept putting my music on the back burner. So it wasn't until, you know, last year after I sold my makeup line, I was like, you know, I'm tired of just working and that's all I do. And I just want to refocus all my energy onto music and touring. And so after selling my makeup line, I'd made that time in that sense. And so, you know, I think I don't have that many regrets, but I feel like I do regret not having released this stuff sooner and just getting too caught up in work. And it's interesting because although I still love singing these songs and I still believe in them and they still move me in a certain way, I don't have those feelings anymore. And I think most musicians would, you know, have similar experiences. It's like you process a lot of your experiences through songwriting but then, you know, that's part of the process and then you move on, you know? So I don't think about that person anymore in any way, but like I'm happily married and I have a son and everything, but I still enjoy singing those songs and hearing them as well.
And isn't it weird that if you had done all this 10 years ago, all those songs would be so different to now? You wouldn't have the son, you wouldn't be married, you wouldn't be happy, you wouldn't be safe.
Yeah.
It shapes the person you are, and it's, even though you could go back and write this angry album or hurt album or, you know, at the bottom of the pile, I love the fact that you are putting everything into it now and not saying, well, actually, fuck it, I'm not going to bother. You're doing it. You're doing everything you can.
Well, like I said, I'm proud of the music. I love the songs and stuff. And I think it's like tattooing, you know, like people get tattooed and their little celebrations and landmarks in time. And, you know, then you move forward and you might not feel the same way that you did when you first wrote the song or when you first got the tattoo, but that's part of growing. And I think that's a good thing, you know? I mean, I may be happy now, but I don't know how to write a happy song. We're already working on album number 2, but I think I have enough things to be melancholy about. That's my favorite genre, really.
Yeah. And last time I spoke to you, I mean, it's probably over a couple of years ago, you had done your kind of first bit on stage with IMX and you was obviously featured on there. Was that the kind of real first proper taste of how it can be if you go out on the road and you can record and the studio life? Was that a really good insight into the industry and how it works?
I mean, I've been on tour many times with my friends' bands over the years and stuff, but that was the first time where I was actually like performing on stage, and that was very strategic. You know, like I had just sang on I think 3 or 4 songs on that last IMX record, and they had invited me to come out and play a few shows, and so I was like, you know, I'm getting ready to release my album, so I want to understand production because I love production. To be honest, I love the behind the curtains work that goes into storytelling and performances. So and you know, and Chris Corner is an amazing person to look at because he's very do it yourself, you know. And so, and I come from that background too, where it's like I'll learn how to do things that are outside of my scope just so I could better understand how to do it. And so I mean, it was kind of like getting my feet wet, but it's just so different when it's not your music, you know. Like now, you know, we just had we had our record release party where we performed a few songs with my bandmates, and it just felt so great, you know. It's like if like I know these songs by heart, I know what they mean, I know what I felt when I was writing them. Whereas when I'm singing other people's lyrics, it's cool. I just like lend myself to the songs, and
Yeah,
I don't.
it's not as
Not
personal,
really
is it?
me.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So I think that's why I'm really excited about this.
And right now, obviously, Love Made Me Do It is all recorded, it's done, it's you've been in the studio, you've gone through all the emotions and everything. How did you find it? Because one thing I love and really respect about you is you don't do something by half measures. You become
Yeah,
the best tattooist ever. You sit there and now want to put everything into it. It's not like a half-hearted bit of a side project. You've gone
yeah.
all out. I can see that with everything from the production on stage to what you're wearing to the
Well,
music
thank
to
you.
the concept art and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think I just thoroughly enjoy it. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
I'm definitely a control freak, and I like to micromanage things. But I think I thoroughly enjoy every process, the building of something. So it's like even when I built my tattoo shop, like before I hired anybody, I was the one that cleaned the toilets. It's like I know every corner of that shop,
yeah.
and so even with the music aspect of it too, it's like yeah, I have a hand in the lighting and we just finished filming a bunch of visuals for our stage show, for our LED screens. And I'm working closely with Linda Strawberry, who, she's like the creative director for Smashing Pumpkins and a few other people. But her and I, we tend to love a lot of the same things, like the finding the beauty in the darker side of things. And so, even for each vignette that we're filming for each song, it's like a story within itself. And I would always love it when I would see bands like Sigur Rós, for example,
Yeah.
like they filmed all their content, and it's like I mean I would buy just the visuals. The visuals were always so beautiful, and they went with the music. It wasn't just like a generic stock
Yeah.
repeat pattern or something, which is, there's nothing wrong with that either, but to me it's like I like really writing it all out, I guess. And we have like some choreography because I have a contortionist in our band, Bryn. And so there are, to me it's like about putting on a show. If I wanted to go, and if I wanted to like just watch a guy standing at a mic, I might as well just stay at home and listen to the record, and like I like the showmanship of things. And plus my bandmates are such stars, it's like I love shedding light on them as well.
Well, the thing is, when you go to a festival and there's these lineups of all these bands, the ones I always remember are stuff like A Perfect Circle or
Yeah.
Tool, where I come away and the visual are is just as important as what
Yeah.
Maynard's singing on stage, and
Oh,
they're the things that matter. Like you said, I could
yeah.
just stick on a Green Day record and it's the same band playing those songs
Yeah.
that are on the record. So
Yeah.
it's really important, and I love the way that you've gone and done this concept and the visuals, and you probably put as much time in that as you have
Yeah.
into the music.
Most definitely, but like I said, it's something that I enjoy. I don't know, I
It
love it.
doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are aspects to it that are work, but yeah, it doesn't. It's something that I like. I dream about. So
Yeah. So when you go into the studio and you're doing this album, do you put? I'm sure you're like me. Do you apply way too much pressure on yourself, where you end up just trying to drown because you are a perfectionist? You want it to be everything you can.
um, no, I don't do that. I'm not like an anxiety person, like an anxiety ridden person, because I've learned a long time ago that like enjoying the process is so crucial. Because like,
Yeah.
what's the point if you're fucking miserable? And so the way that I can do that without having anxiety is just putting in the effort ahead of time. So, even for band practices, I do 2 hours of vocal warm-ups every day before band practice. It's like it's not like it's not like I just overwhelm myself all at once. Like I just kind of do the work as we go. And it's very time consuming. I think it's my mornings start very early, and they're pretty compact. But and then you throw in a kid on top of that. It's like having to make sure I balance out my schedule for family time as well. And it's actually totally doable, man. I think that for anybody out there that's like selling people on the idea that you can't do it all, like you can. I mean, there's a way to do it, and there's a way to do it happily as well. You don't have to be depressed or a drunken mess or anything like that. It's you can actually enjoy it.
I mean, you're part of a great team as well, aren't you? Like Prez seems to be the most supportive, loving guy in the world. That's every
Yeah.
photo you're there, every gig he's there, and it must be
Yeah.
amazing to have that kind of light in your life that's
Yeah, and that's not
always
fake,
rooting for
like
you. No.
yeah, yeah, like some people think that, oh, you do this stuff for Instagram. It's like, no, Like we actually do comment on each other from across the room and send each other kissy faces. And, we have our ups and downs just like anybody else, but that's very real. I've never had that in my entire life. I've never been with somebody who's believed in me or supported me. If anything, it's always been somewhat competitive or dismissive, and that's to nobody's fault but my own for picking those people, and not working on myself to get myself to a place where I could choose, somebody who was deserving of my love. And I'm glad that all of that happened. I'm glad the heartbreak happened because it led me to Raphael, and we really are a great match. And then, I obviously never imagined I would have children. That was never in my cards. I was like, my art is my babies, my job is. And then he wanted to have like 6 kids. And I was like, no way, dude, you get 1. That's the compromise.
Yeah, that's the compromise. 6 to 1.
And so, and he, our son happens to be the most perfect, amazing, cool kid who, is no stranger to being on a tour bus, and he loves music, and he loves our friends. Like, we were laughing about it the other day because Charo, during our record release party, Charo came out and introduced us on stage, and later on she was playing with him. She gave him his first little flamenco guitar, and I was like, what a charmed life, man. That kid, his auntie Charo is over here, and like, all of the people that are within his like his reality are just, to me, some of my superheroes. So it's like, hopefully, if I figured if we inundate him with a lot of art and creativity, like, he'll turn out to do the same, hopefully.
Well, yeah, and then you can sit back in 20 years' time, retire, and let him be the next, big rock star.
Yeah, or we could write music together, that would be a dream.
You could produce his album.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there and you've got this album finished, do you find it quite difficult to translate that to a live show? Not just the fact of the lighting and all that, but actually how you're going to perform, because sometimes you listen to a record and it's so produced or it's so polished. You turn up to the gig and you're like, this isn't the fucking band I just bought a CD for. This it's lacking loads, or it's they've got a backing track and it seems artificial. How have you done that where you've got this incredible sound on record, but you're able, you've got a great band, but you've got these people in confidence that you can present those songs just as well?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, to your point, I do have a great band. I'm like, they're also such excellent musicians, as well as being, cool people. So it kind of makes our job easy and fun. Like when we're breaking down the songs, which we are doing right now as we prep for our upcoming tour, it's like, I do want it to sound like the record, but I also want it to sound like an amplified version of it, So, although we have, like a certain synth lead, like we could make it a tiny bit grittier, or, a little bit more magnified for the live show without disrupting the actual song. And so I think there's little nuances like that. It's like I posted like a little clip from the record release party, and someone was like, oh, you're lip syncing. It's like, no, I'm not. Like those backing vocals like that I recorded on the record, Sammy, she sings those when we do it live. So every sound is accounted for, and I like that because there is a bit of a human fingerprint on it. It doesn't sound, we are an electronic synth band, but you still feel like the soul to it,
Yeah. I mean, I'm a massive fan of bands like Radiohead. When I've gone to see them live, I've always been amazed that it isn't exactly like the record, but it's not lacking. It's not like, oh God, Tom York doesn't sound like he does. They're even doing the songs off Kid A and stuff that still represent what you've heard at home. It's a talent, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we have fun doing that. It's exciting. Like Sammy and I will listen to a song sometimes and we're like, oh, this one's gonna be fun to play. Like we can hear it, we can see it in our heads.
And what about touring? Obviously, we're less than 4 weeks away from your short few dates in America. Are you nervous? Are you scared? Or are you just like, bring it on? I can't wait now.
I'm just excited. Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah. And we start rehearsals on Monday. So we'll be rehearsing throughout this whole month in preparation. And so, I feel like, I feel like I would pay money to hang out with my band. I love them so much. So it's like, it's just fun and exciting now.
And how was it getting those guys kind of signed up for the band? Was it kind of auditioning, or was it friends, or how did it work out? Because obviously you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people, so it's important you just, there's no dickhead.
As far as like how I recruited the band, actually, when I met you, I had just played the demo for one of my songs, Exorcism, to Sammy while we were on the road. and she loved it. And she was like, hey, if you ever need a keyboards, let me know. And so she was actually the first person that joined the band. And then after that, I already knew I wanted Bryn in the band. And so I just hadn't asked her yet because she had like a residency at the time, doing some contortion stuff with somebody else. So then I didn't ask her until later. And I'm so glad our stars aligned for that, because she's really part of she's like the Marilyn Munster of our little family.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then Greg, I met him through my husband, Rafa, who, he knew him from when he was playing with Cat Power and The Gossip. And so he came over, and because, here's the thing, without sounding superficial, I was looking for talent and like aesthetics as well.
Yeah.
And like, to me, that is important. Like when I watch Bauhaus play, like I believe it. There's a sincerity because they're living that lifestyle. They're not wearing costumes. Like that's who they are. And so that's what I really, it's something that's important to me. And I always say, like, messy bed, messy head, it's like whatever you're presenting on the outside is very telling of like what's on the inside as well. And so as most of the time, obviously, but so Greg came over, and I hadn't met him before, and he just was this like, 6 foot, whatever, tall vampire looking rocker guy. And I played him a few songs, and I just remember, I remember when we went upstairs to go listen to music, we passed by my closet, and he noticed that because I collect like old like concert shirts and stuff, and he saw one, and he was like, whoa, like you have a Fields of the Nephilim shirt, and I was like, okay, the fact that you know who that is, like we're gonna be best friends forever,
Here's the contract now.
Yeah, because it's like he got it, and so he's like the brother I never had, and I love playing with him, and we have a little bit of a similar approach when it comes to music, whereas Sammy's more from the electronic world. She does a lot of sound design and sampling, and she's like in the Aphex Twins world, whereas like Greg and I come from like playing piano, and I don't know anything about computers. Like I'm surprised we're doing this Zoom thing right now because like look at technology. But if you give me an instrument, I can play it,
Yeah.
And then Dave Parlay, he's our drummer, and he also plays beats in Prayers. And so, but for Prayers, he plays the MPC player, whereas for us, he has an actual drum set. And he has like a black metal background. All of his side projects are kind of like melodic black metal, and he's got like some more traditional dark wave stuff that he does with his wife. And but when I hear his drums, I to be honest, I always hear Selena. Like he's got this signature sound that's very Selena to me, and so it's like together we kind of bring all of our crazy world into one, and it makes our weird sound.
I was going to say, it's like the massive collective mix, isn't it? Like you've got a bit of everything, and it works.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's amazing when you start like describing it all. You don't think it's all going to work.
Yeah, like I always hear John Carpenter, like whenever I hear like because Greg's leads remind me so much of every John Carpenter soundtrack, and I was like it's so cool, like to see everybody's like little worlds come into place. Like if there's any glitchiness, that's coming from Sammy, and I love that.
You can't go wrong with John Carpenter. He's made some of my favorite soundtracks ever. So that's awesome.
Totally.
It's a difficult one, but do you take any note of any feedback? Are you reading the comments on social media when you put music out there, or are you trying to just ignore and do what you want to do?
I'll be honest, I was actually quite surprised at how positive like the feedback has been, because I think when anybody if you get pigeonholed into or known for something, and then you step out, people it just doesn't compute with them. And I've always been from the mindset of like, when I look at people like Salvador Dali, he's known for his paintings, but he had cookbooks, he designed architecture, he designed jewelry, furniture, he had a perfume line, he did poetry, so it's like he wasn't a one trick chump, and I've always believed that you don't have to be limited to one thing. But and so I think for me, it's like it can sometimes work against me, like having notoriety in another world or another industry, and then stepping into something else. And it's like, but I also understand that takes time to build. But I was actually really pleasantly surprised. I was expecting a lot more, I don't want to say haters, but like, I just know that I'm not for everybody, like it would be weird if everybody liked me, like the stuff I like is a bit more obscure. And And so I've been so surprised and shocked at how well it's being received and from all walks of life. And that makes me happy. I think, when I look at like some of my most darkest times and depression and my addiction, like, there are these albums that have gotten me through it. I know as cliche as it sounds.
No, but it's true.
Yeah. And so it's like, I have like, I know the 2 albums that I got sober to, that every time I listen to them now, it still reminds me of a time where, I overcame one of the hardest things ever. And so it's like, earlier when I was saying like, I don't feel these things anymore. Like I used to feel quite pathetic and inadequate and vulnerable when I wrote songs like I Am Nothing. But then when I see other people responding to it in a way that makes them feel less alone, it's like icing on the cake for me. It's like, okay, I'm glad you like it, but then like if I can help people feel less alone, I think that's very cool.
I sometimes think, and it must be difficult because I'm talking to you about you, but I was interviewing the band Thrice earlier on today, and for me they're one of the best ever. And his lyrics, I don't think he has any idea, Dustin, how powerful his music and lyrics are. So I think a lot of bands don't. And you won't realise that when you've mentioned those 2 albums that got you through the darkest times, there will be somebody out there that will turn to Love Made Me Do It, that will help them not want to kill themselves, get over a just awful relationship or heartbreak. And I bet you forget that sometimes. I bet you forget that you are going to be responsible for somebody out there to help them, and it is their kind of their guidance and their support. And I think not many people realize how powerful music is when you're so involved in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always known the power of it. Like that's why I'm so madly in love with it.
Yeah, you've got it. You know, but I don't think a lot of musicians out there realize just like during COVID and lockdown and deaths and everything, music has always been solid. It's been there for people and it's always there for people. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, everybody, there's not one person that walks down the aisle to get married without a song,
No.
And so it definitely it's a very beautiful thing.
I'm going to put you under pressure now. What we do on the podcast to make it a bit different is you get to choose the outro song. So what I've done since we last hung out is put on every single episode. So if it's Mads Mikkelsen, Anthony Hopkins, or anyone that comes on, you get to choose the song, but it doesn't need to be one of your own.
Okay, great. All right, that's easy.
You've got one already? Wow. I thought you might have about 20 songs that you want to try and whittle down. Then you email me and you're like, actually, I need to change my mind. At 4 o'clock in the morning, you wake up and think, fuck. But what's the song that you want as your outro song today?
Well, I feel like I've just been so obsessed with Perturbator lately. And
nice.
They did come out with an awesome new album, but I won't pick a song from the new album. I'll pick one of like their more greatest hits.
Yeah.
So I would say Future Club.
Yep. I thought you'd struggle with this. I thought you'd be like, oh God, we need another hour.
I mean, I could. I mean,
go with that. Otherwise, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it more difficult. That's the one. And there'll be fans today listening. Obviously, we've got the American dates, and I know the pandemic slows down everything and the money and the finance and everything else. But are we going to see you over here in the UK? Do you think anytime?
Oh yeah, we've already got routing in May. So
amazing.
So the entire month of May. So hopefully everything will be great by then.
Fingers crossed.
I miss all my fans from overseas. Like, I used to go out there all the time, sometimes, several times a year. So I'm excited to be able to, reunite.
I really do appreciate your time today, Kat. It's been so good to catch up with you. I can't wait for you to be in the UK. And when you are, I'll meet up and we'll do another one. We'll make it a trilogy.
I would love that.
It would be awesome. So there it is. There's my interview with me and the incredible Kat Von D. As I said, we talked all about the album Love Made Me Do It, which is out right now. You can go and stream it, buy a vinyl, buy a tape, buy an old school CD, whatever you want to do, but listen to it. Genuinely, it's brilliant. I absolutely love it, and I love the brand new remixes we're getting as well, which are also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you stream your music. The album is beautiful from start to finish. It's so open, it's so honest, and I really do believe you'll love it. So go and check it out, and then hit me up on all the socials and let me know your thoughts. I'll share them with Kat, and I know she'll really appreciate reading them. If you really love today's episode, all I ask is you share the episode. It costs absolutely nothing to do. You can go onto your Instagram and you can put it as part of your story, or just put it as one of your updates. On Facebook, you hit that share button so all your friends on your Facebook list listen to it and hopefully see it. And also on Twitter, which is the easiest way of just retweeting the episode. It gets a whole new audience to Mark and me and is the best way to get the word out there. So please, you might think you're not going to do a lot, hit that share button. It makes a huge difference, and each and every episode I see more and more people doing it, and then the numbers go higher and higher. I can say now that October, even though we're only nearly 2.5 weeks in, has been my most downloaded month of all time, and I think that just goes to show of how powerful this is, so please keep sharing. If you've really enjoyed today's episode, I also have a Patreon page, and thanks to the amazing Last Exit to Nowhere t-shirts, each month they give me a couple of incredible t-shirts to say thank you for supporting me. Right now there's some of my favourite designs from John Carpenter, and honestly you will not regret it. But not only that, Vice Press, my favourite company out there for posters, have come along yet again and raised the stakes even higher. They've given me some incredible posters, artist-proof prints you can't even buy, and limited edition variants you can't even buy. Check out their website and also check out my social media channels, because this week alone I'm going to be giving away 2 variants that are sold out, and you can only now get them through my Patreon page. I really hope you've all enjoyed today's episode with Kat. She's an incredible person and I can't thank her enough for taking the time to come back on. And like you may have heard on the interview, I really hope to do a face-to-face interview with her next year when she's in the UK. I want to wrap this up now and let you all know that the episodes are coming through faster than ever. I'm doing so many interviews behind the scenes, which means more and more episodes for you guys at home. I promise the best stuff is on its way, and I just want to say a massive thank you again for supporting me. I'll be back in only a few days' time with a brand new episode, so until then, listen to Kat Von D, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.